We need to talk. Um, you're not in trouble. I just want to fill you in on a couple things since season one closed. Good morning. Welcome back to the ALG show. Happy to have you here. Get a snack or something. I got a couple things on my mind. This is going to be a longer introduction of the season than it was last. I think the last one was like 5 minutes or something. I got a few things on the docket that I want to talk about and, just kind of get you guys comfortable with what the next season is going to be, what it's going to look like for me, that sort of thing. I've gotten a lot of feedback and support on the last season, and I want to say thank you for that. I went into this with zero expectations, but the support has been incredible. And for that, I'm really, really thankful. Everybody who's just kind of texted me and kind of said their feedback or their 2 cents on that they either like it or whatever it is. Like I always appreciate it, even if it's just like a sentence or so. I'm really grateful for the people who do listen and just generally support me and myself and what I'm doing as a cinematographer, independent from the podcast. I really do appreciate it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And anyone I've picked their brain on for feedback on the show, I really do appreciate that as well. I've taken it deeply into consideration going into this next season. For me, it was like really important to kind of understand what people wanted to hear, what their general thoughts was, because I don't know, I've never done a podcast before. Like, I'd love to know like what other people are saying, especially peers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to hear what my friends are thinking and sort of what they would like to see or kind of their sort of opinion. That other perspective is always helpful. So everything that's been said to me, any sort of feedback, I've taken it deeply into consideration. And part of that feedback actually was giving more updates on myself and how I'm doing in the industry. Kind of as like a precursor for podcast episodes, like more than just like having the guests and like a brief intro. I want to incorporate that, so I'm gonna do that. Let's start that now. Actually, we'll just kind of give some closing thoughts on 2023 and how it was for me, and kind of what I'm hoping for this next year, and that'll be the start of that integration from feedback. So 2023 for myself personally was not a great year. Work was sparse and opportunities weren't very abundant. I had a few commercials here and there along with a couple of music videos. So there was some work, but as a whole, it was probably my worst year as a freelancer, which is terrifying. And I'm sure a lot of us in the industry feel the same way, albeit there was like the strikes as well, which I think was a huge part of like why work wasn't happening. But it's definitely a scary time, and I've seen a lot of people kind of move into a different industry, and I've seen a lot of people sort of take on multiple jobs like as a result of just like the work not being there, right? Even some of like the busiest people that I know, they've taken up work like in other fields, which I think is terrifying. That people that and really that people have to do that. You know what I mean? But let's not obsess over how the year was. We all know it was bad. Let's not obsess over what it wasn't, and let's look forward to what 2024 could be. You know what I mean? Like, I think overall, I'm pretty optimistic going into this next year. Maybe that is a bit naive to think, especially given how this year has been for everybody and myself included. But I don't know. I feel really good about it. I think 2024 printed on something, just like it looks like a confidence inspiring year for some reason. Like, it just looks good on paper. I can't articulate what that means, but like that's, to me, 2024 is like, okay, cool, this is confident, we're good, we're going to be set going into next year, and I don't know, I feel good, and I hope everybody else has a really good year. Film industry folk or not, like, genuinely, I hope that everybody has a good year. Hopefully you get to every goal that you can, and you know, we're all striving to be better versions of ourselves, and I hope that we all can achieve at least one goal. You know what I mean? So some other stuff that happened for me last year, I sold my camera, which is something that I was considering for a while. I was just kind of I had it up for sale on ShareGrid, not thinking that people would buy it, and just sort of saw like, okay, am I going to get an offer for this or not? I had it up for about 6 months, and then I had just sold it like just before Christmas, like days before Christmas. I think it was like the 22nd. It was a crazy rendezvous just to get it to the buyer. I had to. I turns out that he was in the Bay Area. I didn't know that because I had the listing set for local pickup. I was like, oh, cool, he's in LA for like work or the holidays or whatever. So I had to coordinate with like another person to get it to the airport. Um, Luckily, it was like the Burbank airport, so it was like a lot easier to get it to him. But it was still like it is a whole mission to get it over there. And just making sure certain things were lined up for him to kind of get it in safe hands, and that everything was sorted out, and make sure everything was working, that sort of thing. I like double checked with him even after the fact, after he got it, and like made sure he got everything okay. My cameras always have like some crazy exit like that. It seems like I have a very similar story. With the last camera I sold before this one. It was like for them it was I sold it to a DP, and they had a production the same day that he bought it. Um, and I got a text. I think it was like 8 in the morning. He's like, "Hey, can you meet me at this location? Our call time's at 10. We need this camera." And I saw that like it was sold, and I was like, "Oh, I guess I gotta go across town, and I gotta drop it off to him." Turns out it was for like a 4-day job, so like it was for him. He's like, I gotta get this camera like now. And I was happy to sell it, and I'm glad. Again, it's like the buyer of the camera I just sold this. I'm glad it's going to someone who's gonna reap the benefits of that system, and are actively using it. So it was a very bittersweet moment for me, like selling this last camera. I shot a lot of cool projects, including a music video for Los Tucanes de Tijuana, which for me is like, Mexican. It's like a super special thing. I mean, how often do you get that sort of opportunity? Like, never, right? So I shot a lot of cool projects with that camera, and it changed my career for the better, both mentally in terms of like the way that I operate on set, and just the type of work that I was able to produce. I was overall, I'm very happy with it, and I'm really really glad that it went to someone who is going to make great use of the camera. He's working on a documentary, and I'm super excited for him that he's able to have this, and it's able to work in the way that he needs to, and yeah, very happy overall. Yeah, so that's kind of my year wrap. I guess it's not the most elaborate, but I just kind of wanted to touch base on like, hey, this is how my year was overall. But 2024, you're going to hear more in depth of like how my month is, kind of at the beginning of an episode sort of thing. And it'll be tweaked as more podcast episode comes out, because, I'm making these integrations kind of slowly, and I want it to feel right. I don't want it to feel like a thing that's tacked on in the beginning or tacked on. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be like a Frankenstein of things. I want it to be like one flush piece. Speaking of the show, as far as the future of the show and what to expect from the show, there's going to be a few changes, but foundationally things are going to feel very similar. I'm pretty sure I touched on this in the closing of last season, but there's going to be a few sponsorship involvement going into this next season. And as a result, because I feel like if I'm going to have this integration of like sponsorship, I think it's only fair that like I have longer episodes. So I think going into this next season, season 2, the episodes are going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more fleshed out. The conversation is going to be a little bit more in depth. Again, as the season progresses, I'm going to articulate what that means better. But for now, just know that like the episodes are going to be a little bit longer. There are going to be some sponsorship involvement. Yeah, that's kind of it. I'm trying to keep this really simple. I want to not make this so difficult for me to produce and get off the ground, because I think the people that I talk to are genuinely interesting, and I think a lot of people can really benefit from the conversation. And a lot of the feedback that I got from people was that it is very relatable, right? And I want to keep it relatable. I don't want to overcomplicate it by having it be some sort of PR thing. I don't want to, I plan to keep things as genuine as possible. But yeah, that's sort of my 2 cents, my ramble about things going into this season. And yeah, so the first official episode of season 2 should be up um, sometime this month. It's either going to be next week or the week after. Um, the next guest, this first guest that I have, she's great. We've been friends since high school, and it's always exciting to see the stuff that she's doing. But yeah, I'll leave you guys alone. I feel like I'm rambling for too long. Um, I guess I'll see you guys in that next episode. Peace.